Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fish Tank. I'm Baddest Fishady, and today we're going to be looking at one of the new cards in the Minion Masters latest expansion. But before we dive into that, if I can just ask you to take a moment to subscribe, to like, to comment, give us a thumbs up. Thanks so much. Right, now without any further ado, we're going to dive in. We're going to see Rimargaal, the Scourge of the Summit. Now this is one of the two new cards that were added in the latest patch. And I thought we'd just go through the new card and have a look at it in action. So I've got a replay of a game I had here on the ladder. Just threw together a deck and we shall see how it goes. Talk about the experience as we go through it. Okay, so without any further ado, here we go. So this is Morelia against Morelia. Now I chose Morelia for this deck simply because it just gives us some flexibility with her spellbook. Okay, so here we see in our opening hand Rimargaal, Scourge of the Summit. So let's discuss. So Rimargaal is a 10 mana mythic minion. It's a ranged minion, of course. Now, it's the second large dragon to come into the game after Nirvir the Fallen. It's important, I think, to discuss the similarities between this card with Nirvir and, of course, the differences. So, if we have a look at it, this has 1600 HP, Nirvir has slightly more at 2000. This has 50 DPS, Nirvir has slightly less at 40. But also this has a freeze mechanic, as we'll see a bit later, which will substantially reduce its DPS. And one of the most important things to note is Rimagal cannot hit air. Nirvir can hit both, ground and air. Rimagal cannot hit air. It needs some support. Now, we've got a lot of keywords to go through here. So one thing I'd ask you to take a note of is if you look down at our hand, you'll see the 35 indicated above the card. That's our defrost counter. So what does defrost mean? Well, let's go through these keywords and see if we can figure out exactly how this card works. Okay, so defrost. Whenever you play a minion card while this is in your hand, the minion is frozen. And we'll see that as we go on. There's a nice visual indicator. So freezing a card means that it cannot move or attack and takes 50% less damage and healing for 5 seconds. So that's whilst this is frozen. But of course it doesn't remain frozen entirely. So what happens is this has defrost 35, so that's 35 stacks of permafrost. For each mana you spend on a minion card, it reduces the defrost stacks by 1. So basically what this means is that once it ends up in your hand, you've got to spend 35 mana on minion cards to defrost it. Once it's defrosted, and you only have to do that once per game, once it's defrosted, your minions will no longer have the frozen effect when they spawn. So this is something where it's very detrimental at the start. You've got to try to get through that defrosting phase and hopefully not be too far behind and still in the game. So hopefully that explains the defrost. Spend 35 mana on minion cards. Remember, things like Wizard Puff, they are puffs, not minions. They won't count. Okay, so let's have a look. We've got some other keywords here. Again, some that we're familiar with, some that we're not so familiar with. Here we've got the impactful entry. So just like Nirvir, the Rimagal will land in the arena, push stuff back and do 100 damage. Now, also, the other keyword we've got here is the mythic keyword, something that we're pretty familiar with these large units. So the mythic means that it can't be displaced with spells and other movement mechanics. It only takes 50% of its max health damage from destroy effects like a lightning bolt or a wizard puff. And it doesn't die, it leaves the battlefield, so it's not resurrectable. And of course, as a mythic, you can only have one copy of this unit. Now, people tend to get confused when they see mythic. They think you can only have one mythic at a time. That's not true. You can only have one of each mythic at a time. So you can, and we may see it in this game here, you can have Rimagal and Nirvir out at the same time. They're both mythic, but they're different units. Okay, and the final keyword we've got here is Rimefire. Not sure if that's how we say it, but that's what we're going to go with this time. So Rimefire is the type of attack that this unit does. And basically what it means is that any enemy that stays within the attack for 3 seconds becomes frozen. So as we've seen before, as we discussed with the defrost mechanic and freezing your own minions, this is freezing the enemy minions. And freezing lasts for 5 seconds, and they're going to take reduced damage, etc. during that period. Now, one of the things we've noticed is that Rimargaal does an attack where it kind of waves its head left and right, and that can mean that you would think that a unit is in the Rimefire for 3 seconds, but because of the way it moves left and right, sometimes it can a unit can pop out the side and therefore doesn't end up getting frozen, which is a little bit frustrating. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense with regards to Rimargaal. Just to remind you, you need to defrost it before you can play it, and that's 35 mana's worth spent on minions. Okay, so let's dive in and have a look at the action here. So one thing we'll see as we go on is Morelia's spellbook generates skeletons, but those skeletons don't get frozen. And I think the logic behind that is because they're a 0 cost, they don't actually defrost at all. Okay, so there we see our units being frozen when they spawn. You can see there they've got the big ice around them. So that's 5 seconds. Changes how you can play a little bit. You can play things a little earlier in the pocket because they're going to stay there for 5 seconds before they move. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. So we've got a deck here. We've got things like, we've got the bounty sniper in there to try to help us catch up. We've got the skeletons from the spellbook to help us try to get some bridge control where we can. But we're dealing with a deck from Cristiano Ronaldo the Great, the best, sorry, built around this Colossus. Now the Colossus swing here is a little bit frustrating, gets everything. So you can see the counter down the bottom there. We're down to 20 permafrost stacks. So we've just got to try to get through to the stage where we can get the dragon out. And now remember, when the units are frozen, they take 50% less damage. Also, one thing that's a little bit confusing is how some units act when they're frozen. It seems like things like the Defensor Chopper, where they have a passive ability, so where it does the stun when it attacks, that's not frozen. That will still happen. The same with the Curse Bearer. But other units, like say for example the Brother of Light, Brother of the Burning Fist, their shields will be on cooldown due to the freeze. It seems the freeze is effectively a stun. Right, so we're down to 4 permafrost stacks here. There we go. The permafrost has been completed. Rimagal has been defrosted. Now this is a tricky little section to deal with here. We've got the Colossus, the Blastmancer, and the Reboomer, which means it's very difficult to place anything down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to wait for the Reboomer to pop, and then we'll deal with it. Easy in that situation to make a big mistake and lose everything. Okay. So we've taken a lot of phase damage. XP's okay, partially because of the bounty sniper. We've had some extra bridge control from the skeletons. But now we're able to spawn Rimargaal. Now the question is Rimargaal going to help us to win this match or not? Okay, so there we see Rimargaal landing at the top. Again, using the bridge control skeletons at the bottom. And here we have Rimargaal's going to start attacking. This is a very important part of the match. We got the Arcane Bolt on the Rimargaal, just desperately trying to keep it alive. Just about doing it. And if we zoom in here, we see the freeze. The Colossus is about to swing. Bam! Frozen. That freeze saving us a huge amount of damage there. And that's the Rimefire attack from Rimargaal. Freezing the Colossus just as it was about to give us a damn good hiding. Now, let's have a look. Perk 3 for Cristiano Ronaldo the best. So remember, Rimargaal is mythic, so you can only have one of them at a time, but there is the potential to have both different dragons, Nivea and Rimargaal, out at the same time. So we're doing a good push on here. But of course he's going to come back. Can we close the game out here? Doesn't seem like it. Right, Arcane Bolt on the bottom there, not the most efficient use of it. But here we see, we've got our Nirveer. He, of course, is playing Morelia as well, so he has a Nirveer to deal with this push, potentially. He's got a push on both lanes here. Could be a little bit frustrating, using the skeletons at the top to spin the Colossus around. The Curse Bearer is going to start doing a great job. And now we've got the Nirveer on Nirveer. There's a Ghost in there. Looks like the Ghost is going to get taken out. I think there's a cheeky little emote coming up. No. The good thing here is our dragon at the bottom is on the bridge, so we're holding that. We've got Rimargaal at the top pushing, so there's a scary looking push coming down the bottom once our dragon dies, but we've got a good push coming at the top. Heal coming in. Rimagal is spun round at the top. He's desperately trying to keep that off face. He's very low HP, but the Blood Imps have been played, and I think we'll find this is going to be the end of the game. Blood Imp, Blood Pack damage is enough to close the game out. Rimagal has been used. There was a really nice situation in that where we saw Rimargaal freezing, I was going to say stunning, but freezing the Colossus at a hugely important moment in the game. So there we see, that's hopefully a quick look into Rimargaal, the Scourge of the Summit, a little explanation about how it works, the freeze mechanic, the defrost mechanic, and all the other stuff that works with it, and a cheeky little deck just to show how it can be played and how you can win out there on the ladder. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think of this new card, if you've played it or not. Let us know what you think of it, what your experiences are. Drop us a like, drop us a subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed this. My name's Bad as Fish 80. This is the Fish Tank, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.